Well, hello and welcome to India Questions. It is very, very rare, and this program has been around for a long time, to get, in my opinion, two of the really greatest human beings that we have living on this planet today, and both together. And they've never been together before, although I've had them individually, and they have so much in common. Bill Gates and Aamir Khan.
Polio worldwide last year was less than 300 cases. It's only in 3 countries, and I spend the majority of my time on polio because we orchestrated a 6-year campaign.
We feel that malnutrition is a big problem that India is facing, and we want you to work in that area.
Great.
So I was, quite impressed because they were across parties, and there was obviously nothing political happening over here.
Right. Let's have another question. Young girl in yellow there at the back, yeah.
I have this question. Whenever I see, when we take newspaper in the morning, I see the 2 different worlds we are living in. In one world, we have people like Aamir Khan and Mr. Gates, where they're trying to make it a better place. But then again, they have this, you have this business world, all this trips going on, and where you're trying to curb the production of generic drugs, which is very, very important for certain people. For example, HIV/AIDS patient, the drugs which are produced in India, they are very important for patients in certain African countries and, of course, world over. So there's always also this campaign going against production of these generic drugs and
cheaper
to extend drugs. The IPRs and I'm not saying whether it's right or wrong, but then there's always a dualism in everything. So how do you think can we tackle this thing? This is a very important aspect of health.
If you allow generic drugs and copying, then you won't get so much investment and research. But on the other hand, if you go to the other extreme, then you get drugs that are far too expensive for most of the population to use.
This is it's a tough one, but as far as I understand it, when you patent a drug or when you come out with a new drug, I think that you are allowed to use it, without it going generic for about 10 years. Or there's a particular period in which you can earn, as a company, you can
kind of found a loophole around it.
And then after 10 years or a certain period, then it's allowed to go generic. If I'm not mistaken, that is what is followed, which seems to me a fairly good model. And because it's important for companies to invest in research and development and for them to earn, I suppose, back what they have invested. At the same time, the benefit of that should ultimately also come to people who are less privileged. And I think generic medicines in that sense is very important. What we see is happening in Rajasthan today and is quite amazing. The government in Rajasthan has shops. The government has opened shops all across the state in which they supply generic medicines, and they have a department which purchases medicines from all these various big companies, pharmaceutical companies,
and subsidizes
at very low rates and subsidizes it and sells it. It gives it free, actually.
Okay. Yeah. What's your answer to that? It's a tough question.
Well, actually, the ideal system's fairly clear, which is that even during the period that they have their patent, that the poorest should just either get it free, subsidized by the government, or pay the marginal cost, so the lowest cost possible.
For the poor.
And then people who have higher incomes need to pay a higher price because, after all, we want these research activities to invent new medicines, more vaccines, more drugs. And so what's been done, which is very imperfect, is that the U.S. pays over 70% of the profit margin on medicines comes from buyers in the U.S., and then other rich countries are some of that. And so it's been done sort of on a country-by-country basis, where countries in Africa all get this very low price. Now, India somewhat complicates the picture because you can't really pick the right price for India because it has a middle class that should probably contribute to the research, and it's got poor people who should get the very lowest price. So figuring out how you differentiate the private system versus the state system for India, it's tricky. But I feel like we will be able to strike a balance here After all, you want lots of research jobs in India. A lot of these great drug and vaccine companies are now growing up in the country.
And of course, in India, it's difficult to identify who's rich and who's poor when you're actually doling out medicines. So we have this Aadhaar system. Nandan Nilekani is working on a system where you will actually identify and target the poor and target the rich separately. Unless you do that, you wouldn't be able to provide subsidized medicines and full price medicines. So it's a complex issue that requires, but the solution is in sight.
The principle, yeah.
The principle, right, yes. Whether the solution or not. Yes, sir, in front. You're not a young student, but you're about a little older than Aamir, I think. My age.
I'm Rajiv. I'm a pediatrician, a doctor who trained in the US and returned to this country about 12 years ago. Sir, the whole issue that we are all discussing here, whose responsibility is to protect the children? India produces, we have 27 million babies who are born in this country. We have 440 million children. So we are creating one Australia every year. So the thing is, if we say it's the government's responsibility alone, you cannot achieve those goals. But if all of us collectively, like you said just now, and the proximate community where the children are born, say the panchayats in the villages. So what we have done is a group has adopted a village called Bango, which is about 70 kilometers from Delhi. And we can go there weekly and make our visits. And it's just been a wonderful, a shining example, because not only we have seen the survivals improving over there, but children are now in school because we are looking beyond survival into child development.
So you're suggesting this is something that everybody should do?
I think one should reach out to the communities. We have to do it.
How many of you actually do some kind of social work, go out to villages once in a while?
Oh, that's a good number, yeah.
That's about 70%, and the other 30% are the honest ones.
But what was your question? Did you have a question, sir?
Sir, my question was this: whose responsibility is to protect the children? I personally am trying to find my own answers, and my question is, whose responsibility? The problem is big. You cannot blame the government. We need to contribute. So whose responsibility it is to take care of these children? Like vaccinations are one of the most effective preventive ways of, but there's an expense to it, and government sometimes is not able to pay. Then who's supposed to do it? Our community, our proximate community?
You asked for the question.
Yeah, well, no, I think when it comes to healthcare and it comes to payment of vaccines for the poor children who can't afford it perhaps, then that certainly should be paid. I mean, we are all paying our taxes in any case, either directly or indirectly. And I think the wealth that is accumulated by the country every year is not a small amount. Certainly we should be using enough of it to make sure that our children have the right to health, from the time that they are born, or from the time even before they are born.